Hello and thanks for joining us. I'm Brandis Friedman with a special Best of edition of Chicago Tonight Black Voices. On the show tonight, food insecurity is on the rise. How Chicagoans are working to put food on the table ahead of the holiday season.
This trail deserves the same love, care, and kindness that other communities get.
Advocates push for improvements to the Major Taylor Bike Trail.
What is this?
Up next, a look back at our conversation on food insecurity in Chicago and what local groups are doing to address it right after this.
Chicago Tonight, Black Voices is made possible in part by Fifth Third Bank and by the support of these donors.
At Fifth Third, we believe when diverse voices are heard and empowered, communities are made stronger, lives are made better, and the future holds greater promise for all. That's why we're proud to support Chicago Tonight Black Voices. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can drive change.
Thanksgiving usually calls for filling your stomach with turkey, mashed potatoes, lots of dessert, but for many it's not that simple. According to the Greater Chicago Food Depository, 1 in 5 households in the Chicago metro area are facing food insecurity. Meanwhile, a national report found that 17 million households were food insecure at some point in 2022, a signal that food insecurity is on the rise. Joining us now with more on this are Jill Rachman, Chief Operating Officer with the Greater Chicago Food Depository, Angela Taylor, Wellness Coordinator for the Garfield Park Community Council, Audra Wilson, President and CEO of the Schreiber Center on Poverty Law and a member of the Illinois Commission to End Hunger, and Reggie Guy, Director of the Senior Commodity Box Program with the Woodlawn Community Food Pantry. Thanks to all 4 of you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Jill Rachman, starting with you, please. As we said, the holidays are quickly approaching. Give us a sense of what the need looks like right now.
Well, as you opened the story, the need is increasing. What we saw in the report that came out about the increasing need in 2022 is exactly what we saw at the Greater Chicago Food Depository, an increase from 21 to 22. And, you know, while we would all say those results were disappointing and disheartening, and, you know, we did not want to see those, it was not surprising. We have seen the increase in need and we've responded to it. And, you know, it is our goal to continue to do that in 2023 as we continue to see the increase in need.
Audra Wilson, give us a sense, if you would, how would you compare how hunger in our country looks compared to hunger in developing nations?
So first and foremost, a lot of people don't acknowledge that hunger is a crisis in the United States because we don't think of it in the same way as we think of other countries. But the fact is there are so many families that are experiencing the inability to pay for their groceries, the inability, sometimes that they're skipping meals, or they're in locations where they're not getting access to quality food, so it's easier to get chips and very unhealthy foods than it is to get fresh produce. So this is how hunger manifests itself in the United States, and food insecurity manifests in the United States. And even though it does transcend race and ethnicity, unfortunately it does disproportionately impact communities of color.
The Census Bureau's recent poverty report showed that poverty rose to 12.2% in 2022, more than double from 2021. What do you think the cause of this is, and how does that tie into food insecurity?
Well, it ties directly into the ending of the pandemic-related benefits that were extended for those families who were most in need. So it is not a surprise that you're seeing a direct correlation with the drop in the end of those benefits, especially this year when the emergency benefits for SNAP were discontinued for Illinois residents come February. So our panelists can even talk about the fact that you see the immediate uptick in the number of people who are going to pantries. And this doesn't even include the increase of migrants who have come to the Chicago area who are also putting probably some stress on the pantries. So unfortunately, it's not a coincidence.
Right. And we're definitely going to come back to both of those issues that you mentioned with regard to the pandemic era benefits coming to an end, as well as the influx of migrants into the community. Reggie, you've been helping directly feed hundreds of people in your community. How would you say the need has changed from a year ago?
Oh, the need has changed drastically from a year ago. As you guys stated, with the pandemic benefits season, people need food. We see a problem in our community of underemployment and unemployment. These two factors directly affect our communities. People have to choose between buying food or paying for housing, buying food or paying for medical services. So this is really impacting our community, and that's why the need for food has grown so much over the past year.
Would you say the demographics of some of the people that you serve have changed?
Yes, so when we started the food pantry in 2019, our demographic was mainly seniors, 60 and over, about 90%. Now today, we see 50% seniors and 50% young people from the ages of 18 to 55. Our demographics have changed as well. We were predominantly all-black food pantry service, all-black residents in Woodline. Today, with the influx of migrants, we also have a high Latino and migrant population as well coming to our food pantry to receive food that they need.
I was just going to build on both of those statements. The decline of the strengthening of the safety net factor, but the fact that it's happening at the same time that inflation's at an all-time high. Yes. You know, it's just the intersection of those two is creating the increased need that we're seeing, and both are critical factors.
Yes.
Angela, you all opened a grocery store pop-up this week. Tell us why you felt there was a need for that in Garfield Park.
Absolutely no grocery store.
Wow.
In any direction, 1 mile north, south, east, or west, you will not find a quality grocery store or grocery store at all in the Garfield Park community. We've been doing food security, addressing that from the issue from growing food, because we've hosted a neighborhood farmers market for the 11 years, trying to teach community where healthy food comes from, which is in the ground. Mm-hmm. And we all have the ability to be able to garner some of that ourselves right where we live. We don't need a full backyard. You can grow tomatoes, cucumbers in a container. But the need for the grocery store was because of the recent closure of the Save-A-Lot due to the renovations, having them to close early, being close to the holiday. We couldn't just sit on the sideline and not address that. Nowhere. You got to get on a bus, take a lift, cost additional funds
leave
to
the
be
community
able
to go grocery
to have
shopping.
Access.
And so, of course, it's different. This is a grocery store, not a food pantry where food is given away without cost. How are you all pricing items so that, you know, healthy foods are still affordable to the community?
We're having competitive prices based on the items that we've received. We have a great team of young people that's doing the research to see what the prices are across. Our community has developed a grocery store initiative of community partners that have been meeting at least the last year to figure out and collect data from the community about what type of grocery store they would like to see in the community and what type of food items they would like to have. Even at the pop-up here and now that we have, each and every customer is greeted with customer service, and a conversation is had with them to take that deeper dive. How many people are you shopping for? What type of products are you looking for that you don't see here today, so that we can incorporate them into our inventory? And as like before in the past, we were open maybe 1 day a week or 2 days a week. We're open 4 days a week, and we will be running through the end of the year. And we're hoping that that grocery store that we have in the community is be open by that time.
Jill, why do you think food insecurity continues to rise despite being on the other side of the pandemic somewhat?
Well, I think what we've seen is the impact of the pandemic, people losing jobs, inflation. Those issues don't pivot quickly to solutions, and so they're long-standing solutions. So I do think it's the intersection of those things. I think the inflation is critical. You know, I would also say we look at where it's happening, and so when you peel the onion back on the research, you'll see that households with children are more likely to be food insecure. In Chicago, Black households with children are 33% of those. And so we have to look at the issues of poverty, we have to look at the issues of inequity, we have to look at the disinvestment, and then address those issues as solutions. And that's part of the focus for the food depository. We, of course, provide food, and we've elevated our response on the food response, but it's also strategies around economic development that we think are critical.
Advocates, as we've discussed, have stressed, you know, rolling back those pandemic-era public assistance programs like the child tax credit, emergency SNAP benefits, and the impact that that's had on food insecurity and the families that need it. Audra, what's the likelihood that Washington reinstates any of that?
Well, we're going to keep fighting no matter what. I mean, the fact of the matter is we know that poverty and hunger, these are policy choices. This is not any failing of any individual, but a failing of our system. And so we as advocates continue to push because we've seen the actual benefits of an infusion of monies, infusion of food, investments that we're making in people. And so you don't need any more evidence than what you've seen with child poverty rates, overall poverty rates, hunger rates declining during the pandemic. So the evidence is right there. So we're continuing to push for things, for example, like the strengthening of the SNAP program, which has been the cornerstone of a hunger protection program, or protecting against hunger in the United States. We need to bolster our child nutrition programs because we've seen their impact, especially during the pandemic, when you had school breakfast, school lunch, and after-school programs that were feeding kids that wouldn't otherwise be fed if they did not have that support. And Jill said this so eloquently, and that is how we really have to address those root causes of poverty. Because at the end of the day, what we're talking about is when people are impoverished, when people are struggling with acquiring any sorts of monies to be able to support themselves and their families, then you're going to see that correlation between the rates of hunger that are rising and food insecurity. And so we really need to go to those root causes, making sure that people are being paid a living wage, that people have access to quality health care, that people have access to affordable housing, because they all intersect.
You mentioned health care. Reggie, your pantry is focused not only on feeding people, but mental health. How do the two go hand in hand?
Yes. So we take a holistic approach to the food insecurity issues that we have in our community. So now, not only do we have our food distribution twice a week, but we also partner with organizations such as University of Chicago Medicine to provide vaccination clinics, to also provide health clinics as well, and health seminars. Currently, we're working with University of Chicago to address the growing mental health issues that we have in our community. A lot of our food pantry clients are going through a lot of different things in their life and don't know how to deal with it, and don't know the different resources to go and look to get help. So we want to bring those resources to our community to make sure they can have them at the food pantry, as well as getting mental and health seminars and health services.
So we know Mayor Johnson is exploring opening a city-owned grocery store in areas that are food deserts. Angela, do you think a model like that might work?
It could, if the powers that be pay attention to the community. It's one thing to come in the community and have conversations and people speak up and they want to be involved. And then it goes away and it comes back that is not reflective of what those communities' needs are. We're culturally diverse here in Chicago, and we all have needs. But if the government comes in and listens to what we have to say and then provide us with nothing to create that, I kind of lean into it's up to us to stand up and step out for ourselves to generate something happening and then hope that they will get behind and support us.
Jill, what's your take on a city-owned grocery store?
Well, it's funny, I spent the early part of my career in the grocery industry, and so I do feel like it's possible. You know, there are issues around cost and scale, but they're all solvable. There are small and large grocery stores all around the country that do well. I think your point about listening to what the community wants is really what companies do. They listen and they then stock what's needed, and they are already doing that work. So I assume that it's possible and applaud the efforts to make that happen.
Reggie, 10 seconds. Thoughts? Grocery store?
I think it's a great idea by Mayor Johnson to come up with a solution for our problems. We saw a mad exodus of the big box stores, especially after he was elected. So I hope he comes up with a great solution to help with the food insecurities on the west and south sides of Chicago.
Again, that was a recent conversation with Jill Rockman, Angela Taylor, Audra Wilson, and Reginald Guy. Our thanks to them. Up next, how a local trail helps Southsiders get on the road to wellness. The last 2 decades have seen some of the rail lines that crisscross the city converted into bike trails, but not all of those trails were created equally. On the south side, champions of the Major Taylor Trail say it's helped them get on the road to wellness. Now they're asking for the city and community to kick it into high gear and get the trail the amenities they say it deserves. Producer Erica Gunderson recently brought us this story. Here's another look.
It always makes me feel like a kid when I get on my bike. I've got the wind in my hair. I've got the sights, the sounds, the smells of just being outside, and it makes me feel like really young and free.
For members of the Major Taylor Cycling Club, riding along the Major Taylor Trail is a major part of staying healthy in mind and body.
It gives me peace of mind. It's very relaxing. Like, I don't listen to headphones or anything because nature is my sound system that I'm enjoying while I'm riding.
My doctors told me when they diagnosed me with COPD and type 2 diabetes, basically if I wasn't riding, I might not be here today. So this keeps me going.
Riding allowed me to see things in the neighborhood that I normally would not see, driving a car. It was basically mental health for me. So coming through here, able to talk to my girlfriend, able to come up here, see the greenery.
The trail is named to honor Black cycling champion Marshall Major Taylor. Bill Gaston, who founded the Major Taylor International Cycling Alliance, credits the trail's namesake with getting him on a bike in the first place.
When I first learned about him and found out that he had all of his accomplishments, my thought was anybody that was African American should be riding a bike and cheering on Major Taylor.
And given all the trail has done for community well-being, the Major Taylor Cycling Club says it's time for the community to give some of that love back. The trail was completed in 2006, but as an early Rails to Trails project, Club Secretary Brenda Dixon says the conversion was pretty bare bones. And since then, the club says the trail needs more and better amenities to bring it up to the standards other local trails enjoy.
Porta potties, rest stops, chairs, garbage containers, better lighting.
Over 80% of the trail actually goes through communities of color. This trail starts at Dan Ryan Woods, and it runs all the way to Whistler Woods. It's an 8.6 mile trail that runs literally, I'm not kidding you, through the heart of the south side of Chicago. That in the 90s, when the city was planning Rails to Trails projects, they weren't as, I guess, sophisticated as they are now with, like, you see the 606 trail that has all of these beautiful amenities. From our perspective, the trail has never been completed because we would like to have the same type of comprehensive planning that all of the other trails are getting today. And I will continue to advocate for this trail until it is up to standard like every other trail that's being planned today.
There are people that have joined the Major Taylor Club that had health challenges when they joined. And within a year or two of riding, health challenges have disappeared. It saved lives. This trail, given all that it has done, all we need is the same care on this trail like all the other trails. It will save lives.
For Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, this is Erica Gunderson.
And the Major Taylor Trail Keepers are raising $100,000 to get a statue of Major Taylor himself along the trail, as well as calling upon city and county officials to make trail improvements. Their annual fundraiser is next September. You'll find more on our website. Up next, we revisit our conversation with Chicago native Matthew Cherry on his new series, Young Love. You might remember the beloved Oscar-winning animated short film, Hair Love. It centered around a Black father navigating how to care for his daughter, Zuri, and her hair. Filmmaker Matthew A. Cherry expanded on that short film by creating Young Love, featuring Zuri and her family living on the west side of Chicago. Here's a look.
We do this for the kids when life be over. Parent who has got the time to pay.
Baby girl, I know a thing or two about wigs, and you do not need one. You getting your hair done now. But good try.
I was just trying to help.
No need, because I am done. And you are ready for that red carpet, girl.
And there goes Regina King, looking fabulous and mature. And look over there, it's Yara Shahidi with one of the most elegant hairstyles I've ever seen. Wait, what is this?
And joining us now with more on his new series is Chicago native Matthew A. Cherry. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So, Young Love, it's set on the west side, specifically West Garfield. Why was that important to you?
Yeah, I mean, both of my sides of my family are from the west side of Chicago, you know, and when it comes to Chicago representation in mainstream media, especially when you're talking about Black Chicago, normally the South Side is what gets all the representation. So I just really wanted to honor my family that kind of just represented those strong Midwestern values. Shows about a young millennial couple and Stephen and Angela who were just coming off this health scare. They're trying to get back into the mix. They're 26 years old, and they have this young daughter that they're trying to be present for. So they're both trying to achieve their dreams, but they're also really trying to make sure that they're giving their daughter a good life too. So you have some new characters, Loretta Devine and Harry Lennox, Chicago's own, also starred as new characters as Zuri's grandparents, and we have Tamar Braxton and Shirley Ralph. So just a really dope show that's fun and fun comedy for the whole family.
So going back a little bit, because with Hair Love, you fit a lot of story and a lot of emotion into just a few minutes. How'd you do that?
Yeah, just the power of animation, got a great team and had a new story we wanted to tell and we wanted to make sure that this hairstyle that Zuri wanted to be super impactful. And, the fact that the mom kind of lost all her hair dealing with chemo was something that I've seen before. You see the big chop and just how impactful, hair is to Black people specifically, and just felt like a really great part of the story to kind of drop in on this family. And now she's feeling better and getting back to work in the show.
Hair Love was born out of wanting to promote hair love among young, men and women of color, young Black people, obviously. Let's talk a little bit about how much of our hair is wrapped up in our identity as Black people.
Yeah, I think it's all of it. In the show, we really try to showcase just the full range, from people with, natural cuts to locks to no hair, to weaves and crazy. And, thankfully, there's been attention made to it. So now we can get back to being ourselves.
Yeah. Young Love picks up where Hair Love left off. And I started watching Young Love with my 10-year-old son, and he told me I can't watch any more of it without him. We know that in the show, as we've discussed, 6-year-old Zuri is the daughter of Stephen Love, voice of Scott Mescudi, also known as Kid Cudi, and Angela Young, voiced by Issa Rae, as you've said. Give us a little bit more about the story that you're trying to tell with them. We've talked about the city, obviously, but it seems to me also the hair is its own character.
Yeah. We just really wanted to represent for young families, young fathers that have tattoos and don't look like your typical father that was presented in the sitcoms back in the day. But, that's me. Like, I got locks, I got tats. Like, I show up for my daughter 100%. And it's less about how you look and just more how you show up. And so, it's just an extension. We get a chance to see Steven in his world, trying to be a music producer, trying to come up in the city. We see Angela working in the natural hair salon that she works in, trying to kind of get back from this illness. And the whole season kind of follows her journey and just trying to get back to who she was and feeling like she's lost a lot of time. And Zuri is Zuri, just super confident. She's the type of Gen Z kid that wants to change the world. And she sees a problem, she's going to try to fix it. So it's a really fun show. And it's definitely something that both adults and kids can watch.
Yeah, she's a precocious little person, isn't she? So you yourself, you've had an unconventional career path. You went from being a former NFL wide receiver to an Academy Award-winning filmmaker. A few seconds left. When did this passion for you begin?
Really just growing up in the city, obviously just growing up watching great movies, so many amazing local video stores that we used to rent movies from, and just, wanting to be able to tell my own stories too, showcase the side of things that you don't really get to see. Chicago gets such a bad rap in mainstream media, and it's cool to put something out in the world that showcases the positive side of kind of Black Chicago and just how families pull together to make things happen.
Again, that was our conversation with writer and director Matthew Cherry. You can watch the Young Love series on Max. And that's our show for tonight. Join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10 for a special best of edition of Chicago Tonight Latino Voices. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Brandis Friedman. Stay healthy and safe this holiday weekend, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that is committed to supporting diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives throughout the legal profession.
The PBS NewsHour has a rich legacy of in-depth reporting and strong storytelling.
Only 4 people have sat in that chair before us, and the